What's up, all you cool cats and shop rats? Welcome back to Rule Hard Garage. Today's video is jam-packed, full of tips and tricks on replacing basically the entire fuel system, or fixing or repairing the entire fuel system. So you're gonna want to stick around and check that out. You're gonna want to see the mistakes that we made and that we learned from, and you're also gonna want to see the new things that we tried that frickin' worked amazingly well that we've never done before in the past. So you're gonna want to learn those things with us. So stick around to check that out. We also have a little bit of a surprise about what is in the next video. We kind of dropped that in there accidentally, so you're gonna have to watch to check that out. There's some surprises about, you know, other parts of this fuel system that we weren't expecting that just kind of pop up that kind of change our path of direction, and it's just, you're gonna have to watch because the freaking video is awesome. Okay, if you remember last time, we were able to get the car started, but it wouldn't continue to run because once the carburetor flipple ran out, then we were out of gas because we weren't getting it from the fuel tank up to the carburetor. So the first thing me and Miley are gonna do, we're going to take the gas tank out of this car, and we're going to see what's in a gas tank that's 15, 20 years old, and how we fix that problem. So let's get to it. So we're getting ready to pull the gas tank here, and inside it honestly doesn't look bad, which you can't see from that angle, but it doesn't look too bad down there. But we have a surprise. I don't know if this is going to make it easier or harder to fix, but it's got a Carter 6-volt electric fuel pump that's been retrofitted back here in not the best way, but we're going to have to see if we've got voltage to these terminals, and if we do, then we're going to have to assume the fuel pump is bad if it's not running. There's also the possibility that these fuel hoses are plugged, and I mean, that's what we're going to have to look into. But this is a surprise. We weren't expecting that, so I don't know if that front pump is bypassed, but we're going to have to dig into all that. So right now, we're getting ready to pull this gas tank and see what type of crap is on the inside. So it's definitely a little worse than what I thought. You can see the fuel pickup tube there is rusted. I'm assuming that's plugged. Lots of rust in the bottom. The float's gone off of the sending unit, which we've got a new one on the way. I don't know if we're going to be able to save this gas tank or not. I'm really hoping so. Um, I don't know. We do have this electric fuel pump, and that's kind of good news because that's pretty easy to test. So I'm going to go ahead, throw power to this, see if the pump actually turns on and pumps, it runs. If it does run, then we're going to figure out if we've got voltage coming back to the pump. And if we don't, then we know we just have a wiring issue. But we're going to figure out if it's the pump, if it's the wiring, what's going on with that. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Okay. We're going to start by hooking up onto the ground like so, and to the pump like so. And this, and the moment of truth. All right, well, the fuel pump runs, so I can't imagine it doesn't pump. I would say that this pump is good. Most likely what our problem is that pickup tube is plugged, or the lines going from the tank to up here are plugged. I will say probably not the best thing to have this pump running empty for such a long time. All those times you're trying to start it, but I think it'll be okay. I'm sure this old school pump is pretty durable. So that's good news. We don't have a fuel pumping issue. This works. Good news. Great. Moochie moochie. Alright, so we've got no push rod in the fuel pump, which makes sense now because we have an electric pump. We got the carb off, which is good because we got a carb rebuild kit for that. And we've got a fuel regulator, fuel pressure regulator to deal with the electric pump, since there was never a fuel pressure regulator installed when there should have been. Also, as you see, we got something going on there. So let me show you. There's a carb in the fuel pump. Okay, you could probably guess if you've been around long enough, but we're trying this electrolysis to unplate the rust or remove the rust from the inside of this tank. I have heard of this a million times. You can't see shit in there. I've heard of this setup a million times. I've never done it. I've read about it on motorcycle forums and car forums and all sorts of stuff, and I've never committed to doing it. So we have a battery charger here. Here's our positive. It's running through a fuse so we don't short out. This is our anode, which is going down in the tank. The tank itself is the cathode, and then we're moving rust from this onto there. It's working. It's only been on for a couple of minutes, but I can see that there's rust accumulating on this. So I think it might be working. I didn't want to, show you guys exactly how to do it because I've never done this before. I'm going to try it, and if it works good, I promise you I will be doing it in the future. But we've had this in for about 8 or 9 hours now, and we're going to see whether or not it worked. There's definitely water leaking on the floor, which I wasn't. There it goes. I don't know why. But it was definitely bubbling, which apparently if it bubbles, that means it's working. But check it out, because we're going to pull this out, and we're going to see if we took any rust out at all. And proceed from there. Let's do it. There's definitely a lot of crud built up on this. You can see that. It's like a mixture of rust and white crap. I don't know what the white crap is. Let's see if we can wipe it clean though. My plan is to pull it, clean it, throw it back in, and let it go till tonight and see what my results are again and keep repeating the process. There's definitely a lot of stuff building up on it. So I would say it's working. Let me take a peek in the tank here. It definitely looks cleaner. Well, I don't know. I think it's working, but I can't tell for sure. So we're going to keep at it and try it again for another 8 or 9 hours, see what happens, and hopefully we save this gas tank and we don't have to try to figure out how to replace it. Because truthfully, I'm having a hard time finding a replacement for it. The one replacement that I did find is extremely expensive, a lot more money than I'm going to spend. And if we can get this tank to work for the year or 2 or 3 and just deal with swapping fuel filters and cleaning carburetors, that's a lot easier in my opinion. And if it brings us lots of joy coming here out of the future, then we'll invest in a new gas tank. But for now, this is pretty much our only bet. All right, we're gonna pull the rod, the anode rod on this, and see what we got. Oh yeah, lots more. As you can tell, this is a pretty thick anode here. It's 1/4 inch. And there's the old anode, as you can see, which is basically gone and deteriorated. So that was lesson 1 that I learned. So thick anodes are better, pretty much because they last longer. The anode is actually depleting, so if you use thin wire like I did, it's going to fall apart. The second thing is, although I read online to use this, the first time I used this, I had pretty mediocre results. The second time I used this and I mixed it according to online, which is like a teaspoon or a tablespoon per gallon of water. So this is 17 gallons, so I mixed them in these big buckets here, and that produced way better results. I had way more stuff stuck to this. This is actually the 3rd run. So I did that the first time, I did that side the second time, and then this is the other side of the anode of the piece that I bent. And so this is the 3rd pull that I've done, and by far this is the most that I've gotten out of it. There's little tiny spots that are coming out that are pure good metal, but there's a lot in there, and I'm not sure how much success we're going to have here. But there is more. I couldn't find a gas tank, and I was trying to save this gas tank because I'm just trying to save money where I can, and the only gas tank I could find was like $450, $500. I did find out though that you can put a 55 gas tank in this. You have to cut the filler neck down a couple inches, and you actually gain a couple gallons of capacity. So that's probably going to be the plan in the future. And if this doesn't work, if we can't get all the rust out by using reverse electrolysis like we're trying, then that's what we're going to do. So we're going to keep at it here. I'm going to empty this tank and see what it looks like on the inside and try to make a decision about what we're going to do. I'm crossing my fingers and I'm hoping this worked, because I really don't feel like spending all that money, because we got to put tires on this thing. Alright, well, it's the last of the water. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, I think, but it's much cleaner. But what you can't see is that there's still rust there, but there's all those little specks and spots you're seeing are perfectly clean steel. If I take a screwdriver and I scratch at it, it just literally peels right off. So what I think I'm going to do is take a shit ton of nuts and bolts. I'm going to put some more washing soda in there. I don't know why washing soda, but that's what I'm going to do. So roll with me here. A little bit of washing soda, a bunch of nuts and bolts, and I'm going to slosh this around top and bottom and try to wash and scrape off all of the rust that's in there, and then put the anode in again to do a final cleaning on it. And I think that's going to do it. I think that's the best we're going to do. And I'm going to run a filter before the fuel pump and a filter before the carburetor after everything else. And if the pre-filter gets dirty, then we'll have to fucking change it. But I'm not buying a gas tank. This gas tank is going in the car. I have major confidence. Let's do this. We got all the parts out of here, and I just had to stop and show you guys this, because as I said, I had never used an ultrasonic cleaner before for cleaning carbs. I've cleaned a lot of carbs and I've never committed to this. I literally found this in my wife's grandpa's basement, who's the same person that we got this car from, and I was like, oh, I could probably use that. It's a little bit small, but it did the trick for what I needed it to do. And guys, I should have done this a long time ago. I mean, just look at how clean these parts came with very, very minimal effort. It's just amazing. Yeah, definitely get one. I know they got cheap ones at Harbor Freight. My buddy Colin just picked one up. But wherever this one came from, works pretty damn good. All right, let's get to it. We got to get all this shit back together. We have to get all of these parts into the car, so no more screwing around. Let's do it. after 4 cycles with reverse electrolysis and 2 cycles of nuts and bolts and washing it back and forth, rinsing it out, we got this tank pretty damn good. I mean, it's way better than it was. And honestly, I'm going to run it this way. I'm going to run a fuel filter before the pump, a fuel filter up at the carburetor, and it's going to be completely fine. I'm sure there are people out there running gas tanks in their cars right now with more rust than this in it, and they don't even know it just because, you know, condensation and stuff gets in there. So check it out. Huge difference. Huge difference. All right, so the tank is clean. We got the carb rebuilt. That's all back together. We tested the accelerator pump, all that stuff. It's good to go. The pump, I just rinsed this pump out. I had a little bit of leftover Behrman's carb cleaner, and I hooked it up to the charger, pumped a bunch through it to make sure it was going to pump, clean out any old varnish crap that's in it. We got a massive table full of parts here. We got brake line, we got fuel injection hose, we got fittings. I do have to grab one more fitting, but today it's all going in the car and we're getting it done. It's gonna start running on its own. Alright, so I want to take a pause here just so you can explain what we're doing real quick. This is 5/16, and we're going to 3/8. Really, the reason for that is because the fuel pressure regulator was 3/8, and I said, hey, what the heck? Might as well do it all 3/8. Going too big isn't really going to hurt anything. I'm replacing the fuel line anyways. I don't think I'm ever going to be making crazy power at this car, but it doesn't hurt to have 3/8 in there. If you have a larger amount of volume of fuel, because you have a larger line, at the same pressure, you're going to have more time before you before that pressure falls off. So in a high horsepower application or something like that, if you suddenly used a bunch of fuel, the head on the pump would drop off slower. That doesn't matter for this, but I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, hit me up and I'll try to explain a little bit better. But I don't see a lot of people do this when they're doing like hose connections on steel line. I don't see them use the tool this way, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. All right, so what we got is just a regular old flaring tool, and this is some 5/16 steel line. It takes a double flare here. Steel nut goes into the gas tank there, but then we got to go to a fuel filter here outside the gas tank. We're going to be running this fuel filter and some 5/16 fuel injection hose. So you can go straight to steel and just clamp to the steel. It's a low pressure. It's not really going to matter, but it could leak. with a regular flaring tool and the die, or whatever you would call this, to make your double flare, if you know what I'm talking about, you can use this, skip the actual flaring step, and just end at this, and you can make basically what is a really solid barb type fitting. And that's what we're going to do. So we have 5/16 that's going to come out of the gas tank. We're going to go to the fuel, or through the fuel filter to the fuel pump. Out of the fuel pump, we're going to go 3/8 hardline, and we're going to go 3/8 all the way down the side of the car. 3/8, 3/8, 3/8, 3/8 up, pretty much ending right where you see the old fuel line right here. We're going to go to 3/8 there, and then we're going to have fuel filter into the fuel pressure regulator. We got a fuel gauge, and then 3/8 to the carburetor. The fitting on the carburetor will also be 5/16, so that's just what the carburetor accepts, so that's what we're working with. So anyways, let's get back to it. Alright, we got the fuel line all in. I spared you guys installing that just because it's pretty boring, pretty straightforward. I did what I said I was going to do. I'm going to show you a couple things, and then we're going to jump into something else. So let's get under and take a look at the fuel line here. Show you what we got. So you can see it there. We're hooked up to the fuel pump. We're hooked up to the new fuel line. We got our filter in place back there. As I said, we got 3/8. Come back. 3/8 there. 3/8 all the way to the front. I don't have anything strapped right now, which we definitely plan on doing. That's a necessity. But just because we don't know if we're going to have leaks on any of these flare fittings, we're going to leave it loose, and just in case we have to crank down on these. But, and yes, I used a single flare. That's just a regular old single flare. Everybody has their opinion on that. I think single flares are fine for fuel. You do whatever makes you feel safe. I'm in no way telling you to do that. You do what you got to do. So, anyways, this here, we got this unbolted from the firewall. We just filed out a little bit on this bracket. We were able to bolt the regulator bracket that came with it right in place, right there. We got our line coming up right here. We still got to make this connection and strap it to the firewall back there. But what I'm going to do with you guys real quick, I'm going to show you what we're going to do here, is we're going to take this guy. This is where our fuel line is going to come in. This is our filter. This is going to go out to the carburetor. I bought a cheapo fuel pressure gauge. We're going to look for a vintage one, but for now, this one's going to do the trick. I got fittings, so we can stick that in the end. We'll be able to bolt this straight to that. We'll be able to bring our hard line into this, all mounted to the body. And we'll leave here. We'll go to the carburetor. We'll have a piece of rubber hose in there in between to separate the vibration from the motor to the regulator. And this way it'll be nice and easy to adjust. So I'm going to throw you guys up there on the time lapse and watch me put this thing together. Alright, well, there she is. It's not the prettiest looking thing, to be honest with you. But we have to filter the fuel. We got a shit-ass gas tank, and we're just trying to make this bitch run. there. Just like that. All right, I have to interject a little bit here because that was a stupid idea and we totally fucked that up. We should have never put that in a way that it was fixed. The glass is not made to absorb vibration, and it was pretty obvious that the glass was going to crack, and as you can see, it cracked. This did not last much longer than after we shot that. So as you can see, that's broke. That didn't work. And I'm going to show you what we did here. Something totally different, but we did catch a little bit of crap. You can see there. So it was fun while it lasted, right? So this is what we got going on here now. As you can see, we've got pretty much a piece of rubber in there to absorb the vibration, and then we've got just pretty much an aluminum fuel filter in there. Oh, ignore that. Ignore that. That's for the next video. Pretend like you didn't see that. All right, we got a good bit of this old gasket here, so we're gonna clean that off. So we're gonna stuff some tissues down here so that we don't knock a bunch of shit in the motor. I don't think this motor would care, but safety first. Holy cannoli. Well, the fuel filter itself is leaking, of course. So we're gonna have to loosen that flare and try to tighten it, I guess. Oh, brother. The last thing we need is to douse the spark plugs in this shitty wiring with gas. Oops. Alright, so we fixed the leak up here. No leak there, that's good. We also had a leak. The needle, the seat for the float, the needle seat, had something in it. We had to pull that apart, clean that. That just needed to be tightened. Not sure if it's still leaking or if that's... We'll have to check that here in a second. Nope, I'm gonna drip there. We also had a leak down here. That's done. Where's this one coming from? Probably that flare fitting. I just want this just cracking the needle there. That's all that we have for you guys today, and that was a hell of a video. I'm sure you guys agree. We learned a ton of shit, right? I do want to point out the reverse electrolysis. Jason Camp guessed in the short exactly what I was doing, so you nailed it, dude. Everyone else, thank you so much for coming on board, joining the channel. To anyone who's not subscribed, please subscribe, hit the bell so you get all the notifications. Do not forget the thumbs up, comment, all that stuff means a lot to us. We really, really, really appreciate it. Keeps us going for all this stuff that we got going on this car. We've got a lot planned in the future. Real quick before we go, can anyone guess what we've got going on for the next video? You had a little sneak peek there, if you remember. There was something you've seen in the video that you guys weren't supposed to see. So check that out and see if anyone can guess down below. If you can, well, maybe you'll get a shout out in the next video. Until next time, peace!